Well, hello, wealthy women. I tell you, I have one of the best guests today on the show. She is going to truly help you get your money together. And I'm going to let her fill you in with all the details. But we know that money is a very important subject. We all want to not only make it, but we want to learn how to manage it and keep it and have it work for us. And so this is going to broaden the subject of what we usually talk about in relation to money. And without further ado, let me just pass over the camera and microphone, and you will learn so much. So go ahead and take it away. Tell us who you are, what your business is all about, why you started it, how it transforms lives, and especially where everybody can reach you. So, looking forward to
Yeah.
hearing it.
Yeah, sure. I would love to. So my name is Sara Fins. I'm a finance coach, retired CPA, and I help solopreneurs learn to manage the money in their business so that they can save time, stress less, and also more importantly, keep more of the money that they earn. Right. And so I got started in this business because, well, I went to school for accounting. I became a CPA. I worked in corporate accounting. And then I went back actually when my first child was born to study nutrition, and I opened up my own health coaching practice. So that was a passion of mine. I had always been interested in that. And during my time, it was about 10 years that I ran that business. I realized that so many of my colleagues struggled with the financial management side of their business, and it kept them from growing. It kept them from bringing their businesses to the level that they wanted. And they were very confused in that area. And that was a place where I was very strong, given my background in accounting and all the things I had learned over the years. And I started out kind of helping colleagues on the side and just teaching them how to manage the money in their business. And I realized one day that it was a gift of mine, and that I really could truly help them in that way. And so I created what's now my course, the first iteration of that, and started helping other health coaches, wellness practitioners, other types of coaches. And these days it's really solopreneurs who have their own businesses. And I started doing that work, and it grew, and it was something I realized that I had a real passion for. And so I closed my health coaching practice and pivoted back full time a few years ago into this space. And so that's what I've been doing. Yeah. So I've been helping solopreneurs through my course and private coaching to learn to manage the numbers in their business. And it helps them to get organized for taxes, for also knowing the financial information they need to know to make smart business decisions. But I've also found that the transformation too is it gives them empowerment, right? Like, it empowers them to understand the numbers and what's going on, the flow of money in their business, which many of them come to me and feel that they don't know accounting, they're not good at math, or whatever the story it is they've been telling themselves. And I help equip them with the knowledge that they need to feel confident about that, and understand that they can really understand what they need to know, and use that information to grow their business. So
I love this. It's so important because, you know, earning money is just one part of the puzzle, right?
right.
A lot of the best things to do is to learn how to keep your money. And then once you keep your money, is to learn how to utilize it properly. And I think that, many of us get overwhelmed by that. And there is such truth in what you said about it building your confidence and empowering you. When you are going above and beyond the basics and starting to understand your numbers and get your budgets in order, control your debts, figure out a savings, put your taxes in order so that when that time comes, it's not so overwhelming. All of these are steps that is basically saying, you know, this is how I want to treat my life. I want to be organized. I want to be empowered. I want to respect money and my situation. And I love your program because it takes the overwhelm out of that. And it also educates a lot of us that we don't always even know all the things we're supposed to know. And just learning about that is so empowering. So maybe share a little bit about like how your program might begin for somebody and the transformation they can sort of expect. And what do you see in the end, where a woman feels so great after she kind of has it all together with this money part of everything?
Yeah, I what I see really is, my clients come to me confused, overwhelmed, like you said, unsure of what to do. They're smart, savvy business owners, but they're feeling stuck in this area. And so honestly, without training, we don't learn in our society kind of how do you manage your numbers, right? So without training or without learning what you need to know, it's you just don't learn it by osmosis, right? So it's important to learn the steps. And so what I do is first I will speak with them about their situation and what it looks like. And my program is a very simple kind of Excel based template system. And the reason why I designed it that way is because I also found the technology was holding people back. Investing in an accounting program is expensive. It's also confusing. It's designed really for accountants and bookkeepers, even though it's open for everyone to use. And so my client Lisa comes to mind because she came to me, she was using another system like that. So many of my clients aren't using a system at all, and that's perfectly fine. Some are coming from a more complicated system. So that's what Lisa was doing. And she wasn't able to get the information she needed out of it. And it felt so overwhelming to her that she would wait until the end of the year, until it was tax time, and then sit down and try to do it all at once and wind up pulling an all-nighter. And it was just too much. And so we got her set up with my program, and then we talked about all the things that she needed to look at throughout the year, and also the things that she did not, right? So there were some things she was doing that were unnecessary, that were creating extra time. And so now fast forward two almost 3 years later, she has the numbers she needs. She knows where to find them. She knows where to pull everything out when she needs it. And the best part is that she's built it into her regular business processes. So she spends a few minutes, each week getting her information in. And then at the end of the year, she just has to kind of finalize everything. And so it's, a tremendous weight off, having a plan, knowing exactly what you need to do, and knowing that your numbers are there when you need them in real time. So that's kind of the transformation that I see in many of my clients is they come confused. We get them set up, we figure out what they need to do, we make it part of their business and part of their what they do on a normal basis and their business processes, and then they continue on with it. So
I love this. I almost think of a metaphor sort of like let's take clothing, right? We could have the most beautiful pieces of clothing, so much of it, maybe our closet is just filled to the rim, overwhelming. We don't know where to look when we need it. We have a special occasion and we're like, where is that dress or that, silk blouse? We can't find it. We get stressed out. We pull everything apart. It lays all on the floor and it's just ridiculous. And then we finally get motivated that we're going to organize our closet, and we know it's a dread because it's probably a 3 day in front of us activity. And unfortunately we didn't learn the tool set necessarily to keep up with our clean closet. We find ourselves a couple months down the line in the same scenario with the same situation, and that we know does not feel good. It doesn't feel good. It's like a dirty car with a bunch of mess. It When there's order, there's beauty, and that is beyond your environment. This is also like your numbers, your money, and especially so. And I love that you are able to basically, you teach your clients how to consistently do, once it's all set up, they have to do just a little to maintain it, and then they'll never get that overwhelmed. They'll be so aware. And just imagine it turns into like this most gorgeous closet with everything in its place, where everything is, a chandelier in your closet, and everything's beautiful and makes you feel good and confident and empowered and like you're proud. And this is what you do for women with their money scenario. And I think that analogy really is a good one, because I think we can all relate to the messy closet syndrome and how good it feels to get it in order. And money's no different. And I love that you said, the tech is very confusing. and it's not user friendly. And so I love that you kind of address that, and you have a process where, people can start, they can see what's happening, they can build their confidence and stay on that path to success. And yeah, I just love everything that you said and that you're doing, because it's a lifelong habit, you know? And
Absolutely.
yeah, and it's one of
Absolutely.
the most important ones. So, um, let's see. So, where would people go to find out more about your programs and your work?
Sure. Yeah. You can find me at my website, which is sarafins.com, SARAFINS. And if you put / self-paced, you can learn all about my program. But my website is the best place to find out all about me.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, so now I would love to get into some success questions with you. Now, these are so great, and the whole goal here is to share your experience, how it was for you, and all of these questions will definitely become an inspiration to others. And so we'll get started with that. So, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, let's see. So, the first question I have is, what about your business journey would you change if you could, or maybe you wouldn't change anything?
Oh, that's a good question. I think what I would change would be to be more accepting of mistakes sooner, right? So, now this is my second business. I've had two businesses. I've done, a pivot back into the finance space. And it over the years, there are things that I look back on that I think to myself, if I had been willing to, try something different or make a mistake, and I wasn't kind of playing, carefully, like maybe things would have progressed faster to, where they are now, or wherever I wanted to go. So yeah, I think to not be afraid to make mistakes and potentially fail at
Well, I
little
love that. That
things.
actually can lead into it. It might not be the next question, but we do talk a lot about fear and coming, getting past it. So, with what you just said, and now where you are, what would you have to say about the idea of fear, and what is your way now of accepting it and moving through it or around it or however? And
Yeah, I heard a great quote years ago called, or that is, feel the fear and do it anyway, right? And I don't know if you've heard that, but
I love the book. I read it a
yeah.
couple times.
Oh yeah,
I think it's
yeah,
by
right.
Susan Jeffries or something like that. Great book. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I try to keep that as my philosophy, because I think reframing the fear as just trying something that you're not comfortable with is an easier way to kind of digest something that feels scary. And also, the feeling of fear in the body is very similar to the feeling of excitement, right?
Yeah.
So trying to tap into yourself and figuring out, is this something I'm afraid of? Or is this something that I'm a little bit excited about? Can I reframe that, and to
Yeah.
help get myself to move forward and to do it? So yeah, like a lot of kind of checking in and thinking to myself, you know, this is the next step I need to take. Let's feel excited about it rather than trying to get stuck in the space of fear.
Actually, I love that you brought that up, the body experience, because you are so correct. The two are very similar. And I guess the real question, everyone should ask themselves, is this really going to be dangerous? Like
Mhm.
danger where you have to self protect. If it's not, it's leaning towards, like you said, you're just pushing your boundaries a little. And one of my favorite sayings is, get comfortable with the uncomfortable,
Mm,
because the only way that you are ever going to grow is if you stretch. Now, that doesn't mean you have to stretch a whole bunch all at once if you don't want to, but it's like a muscle. And it's even similar to your money program, where you're teaching women, others, how to expand their understanding of money. Maybe not all at once, because you don't want them to get overwhelmed, but a
right.
little bit at a time, right? And it's the same thing with fear. So a lot of women, when they're first starting their businesses and they have to go, online to do their first Facebook lives, it is unnerving for sure. And I know that we've all felt that way.
Mhm.
But I think, like most things, it just gets easier once you do it a couple times, and then you don't even think about it anymore. And then I always think too, if you're not afraid, you're not stretching yourself enough, right? You should always be pushing a little
Yes.
bit forward, right?
Yep. I agree.
Was it hard for you when you first did your like first Facebook Live or something like that?
Yeah, when you said that, I immediately thought back to that time. Yeah, and I remember being like having to psych myself up and like, I'm gonna do it. Okay, I'm gonna do it. It's just gonna be 10 minutes. Like I just, and then,
Yes.
and now it feels easy, all these years later. And so it's a good idea to reflect on those things that we did for the first time that felt so overwhelming and scary that now, just feel kind of easy. So
Yeah. And
yeah,
actually, you just made another great point too, because sometimes we approach brand new things with such shy confidence, and then we forget all of the great things we've already accomplished, and we sometimes don't give ourselves enough credit. And
right.
what you just said is kind of go back in your mind and think about how far you have come. You know, even from the your early days in life, just think about all the things that you've accomplished, and then I always think, what's the worst that can happen, right? I mean, so I love this idea. Really good. Okay, another question I had is, what has been your biggest milestone or victory so far that you've achieved in your business?
Um, Creating something from nothing. I mean, to me, that feels like such a huge milestone. When I put my program together, the first iteration of it, it was super basic, and I, tweaked it and created it and built it out. And now like there's this program that, what did not exist. And now it
Yes.
does. And so for me, that's pretty amazing. And the fact that that format can reach more people,
Hmm.
because I do one-on-one coaching as well, and I love doing that, but I want to empower as many women business owners as possible to keep track of their numbers. And now that this is complete, I have the vehicle to do that more easily. And so yeah, for me, I think that's my biggest business accomplishment to
That
date.
that's a great one. And I also love that what you just said in this whole moment is you said the first iteration, because a lot of women or a lot of business owners in general will get a little hung up on the perfectionism and just wait, and they don't launch. They don't let it out there. How did you find that you had a little bit of that, or did you feel comfortable going
um
forward?
I definitely think there was a little bit of that. I worked through a lot of that in my health coaching business because I
Yeah.
had programs I ran there. Over those years, I got really good at, progress, not perfection, and just kind
Yes.
of putting things out there. The other thing that's really helpful, and this is the way I looked at my Easy Business bookkeeping program, was I wanted it to be what my clients needed. And so I put together what I thought they needed, but then it was really important for me to get feedback. And so I looked at it like I have to get it out there so that people can test it and try it, in my beta offer, and let me know what they want to see improved, what they want to see changed. And so looking at it that way is helpful too. Like you want to get it out there so you can get feedback, so you can make it really what it needs to be.
Yes,
So
yes. I love that. I think isn't it isn't it Apple or Windows where they would put out the product not even perfected on purpose so that the consumers would let them know what was missing, what they liked, and rather than spend all that time in the whole like perfection moment and never launching it, get it out there. And just understand that there's going to be constant development forward, and that's how it's supposed to be. And that's actually the fun part. It's like if you're baking or cooking something, you might do your first veal parmesan or something, or chicken parmesan, and it's not so great, and then you taste it, you get
right.
feedback, you hear what can be better, and as the practice happens, it just keeps getting better and better. I always reference food because I have a culinary background, and I at
I
one point
love it.
wanted to be a chef. And so everything is all about food and travel with me. But okay, next question. This is a good one. How do you, what is your favorite way of being inspired? Like if you're looking for inspiration, how does that show up for you?
Um, Walking in nature is really helpful for me, and kind of getting stopping the input, right? Like sometimes I'll
Yeah,
go for
yeah.
a walk, I'll listen to a podcast, or I'll read something, or I'll research something. But if I'm looking for inspiration, I have to unplug from that so that I can kind of let the inspiration come in. Also paying attention to, creating space. So for me, I'm a morning person. The morning is the time where I feel most creative. So I try to keep space open in my schedule so that I can feel inspired to write, content or whatever it is I need to feel inspired with. So those are the two things that I think work for me,
I
is
love
creating
that.
space and
Yeah.
being in nature with
Yeah.
just the sounds of nature, just myself.
Yes.
So
Do you have a specific morning routine or an evening routine where you basically do the same thing every day and that just kind of grounds you in, like, even what you're saying right now about creating that space? Is it, at a certain time for a certain amount of, minutes, or how does your morning show up with a routine?
yeah, I actually don't have a specific morning routine. Over the years, I've tried to cultivate it here and there, and it never quite stuck. I have two small kids, and they're teenagers, but they're still here in my house, and
Yeah.
they're still up early. And so I've always made a point to get up before them. And that really helps to set the tone of, me being kind of awake and present to myself before the day starts. And so I think that's one thing that's been consistent over the years, has been getting up before them, no matter what time that happens to be. And then once they are out the door, that's when I start my day. And it's those first couple hours that I try to leave open for creativity or whatever I feel inspired, or the pressing things I need to get done that day.
Yeah, I love that. I've tried a couple things myself, and sometimes I get in the mood to stick to a very, strict task. This happens first, then that, then that. And then sometimes I feel like, okay, there needs to be some room, like you said, some room to breathe for creativity and art to happen, so to speak. And I was a little bit nervous, but I remember I did it for like a week, and I said, I am not going to have any plans outside of the scheduled appointments I had to show up for out of respect for everybody else. But other than that, I would get on my meditation pillow and I would just wait. And I'd say, okay, what is my inspiration tape? What do I feel like doing? What would bring me joy? And I would just go with that. And I was worried that, I wouldn't accomplish all of the things. I found that's not the case, because when you truly, like, you don't have to force yourself to do things that you have a desire in your heart for. So like when you're
Mm.
creating your own business, right? And you want your business to grow, even if have a couple days where you're like, I'm just going to move by inspiration only, believe it or not, you'll get so much done because you want to go forward. So I've had the experience where it works both ways. It depends. So I like the idea, like you're saying, make room, and you'll just show up. So you kind of have to feel it out. Some days are more of a checklist, and some days you're just like, nope, I need the space. I can feel that my mindset is off. And that's kind of another question I have.
Exactly.
When you
Yeah.
have those moments where, oh, I don't know, you feel like overwhelmed, you feel like you can't get in your groove. And,
Mhm.
there's some days where, like, Wonder Woman, right? And then there's other days where it's just like, oh my goodness, I just have, the energy is not happening.
Yes.
How do you kind of shake yourself into back into your groove so you can kind of stay on your momentum?
Yeah, what you just said before was 100% true with creating space. And there are definitely times where, it's hard to motivate for whatever reason, you're not feeling inspired. And so depending on, I guess, how deep in it I'm feeling, sometimes I just let it go. Like I'll just stop working for the day and say, there's nothing urgent. Of course, like you said, if there's a call, if there's a commitment, that's one thing. But if there's, you can clear the rest of the day and just kind of do something that's nourishing to you, relaxing, maybe napping, maybe reading, something like that to get you, you know, feeling fresh again the next day. That will often work. And then sometimes what I'll do is, if I'm, not feeling like I need to totally disconnect, I'll do kind of admin work. So there's always admin work to do in our business,
Yes.
right? And then that makes me feel like, okay, well, I've got a few things checked off, and now I have more space for, the creative time when I'm feeling creative. So I
Yeah.
try to, I'm a kind of scheduled person, but I also like to keep the flexibility there for times like that when that pops up.
I like that. It's sort of like the 80-20 rule. And I think that's
Mm.
pretty much also kind of how I focus. It seems like 80% I'm on focus, but then there's that 20% that shows up. And then, you feel like, should I force myself? And then it just, you can, but then there's moments, like you said, if it's not a, an absolute, and there's flexibility, sometimes, because I think, because we're entrepreneurs, we never shut off. We never
Mhm.
leave an office at 5 o'clock, so to speak, and we're done,
Absolutely.
and we don't go back until like 9 a.m. or whatever that would be. Our minds are always thinking in our sleep, because we're so excited about our business, inspired, wanting to help, wanting to do things better or differently, that we don't shut down. And sometimes you just need a play day or a hooky day, where you're just like, I'm done. For me, it's like,
Mhm.
I find that when I am kind of too much in the business head, for me, it's cooking. So I might bake or
Mhm.
cook. I'll stay in the kitchen and, get out in nature, of course. And just like, no business today. Even if it possibly could have been a normal business day, and like, if there were no appointments and I just can't get into it, and it will fuel me to come back so much stronger. So I love this idea that, we don't need to feel guilty because we're not showing up every single moment. There has to be some room and flexibility, because that's one of the freedoms of owning our own businesses, right? That
Yes.
we can, have that space and that time and that joyfulness to show up. So, and some of the funny thing is a lot of the times when you unplug and you allow what you said, that space,
Mhm.
some of your best business ideas are going to show up without you even trying to find them or pushing, that push
Mhm.
energy. It's not necessary. So
Yeah, I
I
found
like,
that to be true.
yeah. And it's nice. It's joyful that way, because then it's like you really are doing your business with joy leading you, instead
Mhm.
of the shoulda or coulda, or, the whole have to, which is not a very fun energy to be in. But, okay. So my next question is, when you have a specific goal for yourself, how do you go about it? Do you have a specific idea for goal setting, or do you go more into the manifesting mindset, mix of both? Like, what is your process?
Definitely a mix of both. I am a very process oriented person. I always have been. And so that's important. So what I like to do there is I like to start with, you know, what is the goal? Doing some visualization around that, doing some tapping into the energy of it, that sort of thing. And then working backwards and figuring
Yes.
out the practical steps that have to happen to get me to the place where that can be accomplished. And so, yeah, it's a mix of both in that way.
I love that, because a lot of the time, I think back in the day, when we thought about goals, we would think of it from the start position to the finish, and
Right.
where we were starting, we would start with that kind of feeling, which we didn't get there yet. And I love this idea of working backwards, because when you work backwards, it means you've already stepped into your future. You've
Mhm.
kind of felt it, you envisioned it, which is the manifesting part. And then when you work backwards, okay, well, what do I need? Each month or weekly or daily to finally get that. It breaks it down into simple steps that are manageable. So even if it is such a big goal, it's not, I mean, yeah, from start to finish, it's a gigantic goal. But when you break it down into all the little baby steps, it's manageable, it's possible, and you feel confident going forward. And the fact that you started with the end in mind, and you work backwards, you have that confidence that you'll know you get there because you've already envisioned it. So I always believe, if you have the desire in your heart and you can envision it, then it's meant for you and it will happen, because you can connect it to that possibility. So I love this stuff. I love mindset stuff. And, we probably have both been blessed to have coaches that have helped us, or resources. And I always like to ask, not everybody's in a position necessarily to hire a coach or a mentor. For those women that are seeking that, guidance and
Mhm.
empowerment and inspiration, what would you suggest for them if they want to kind of, maybe their family and friends don't understand why they want to have this dream business, and in the beginning you're feeling a little unsure and it can take you down a little bit. How would you suggest someone who can't necessarily afford a coach to empower their mindset to go forward with their dreams?
Yeah. I've had some amazing coaches over the years. I've also had some amazing peer groups. And so that's actually what I would recommend, finding, your tribe. If you are a health coach, for example, and you're in a group with other health coaches, see if there's someone out there or a few people out there that want to connect. If you jive together, you can meet on a regular basis to kind of keep each other accountable. Actually, there's two women that I still meet with. It's been probably 6 years that we've been meeting, and they're peers of mine, and we've known each other from, years ago when our businesses were just starting out to now, and we've been a great support system. It doesn't cost anything. We just meet every other week on, for an hour and have a chat about whatever anybody's needing at that time. And, it's anything from business support to, like you were saying, personal support. My spouse doesn't understand, or I'm struggling to, be more visible, or whatever it happens to be, mindset and also practical. And so that's something that everyone can do. Find those peers that you connect with and that will help kind of challenge you to grow.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that, especially because most of us are doing our own business by ourselves in our own
Mhm.
little, place in our home where we don't have, that connection with others. So having those groups, online groups, it doesn't matter, Zoom groups, and then in your downtime, I always suggest, watch some YouTube videos on
Mm.
how to grow your business, read some inspirational books, and just make sure you're always like surrounded by that uplifting message,
Yes.
because, it's so important in the beginning, especially when someone is brand new and they don't necessarily have the whole clear picture of how their business is supposed to develop and what it's supposed to go into. And so great advice there. And the next question I had is, what will you never compromise on with your business? Like, what is a absolute boundary?
I mean, integrity, right, is the number one
Yeah.
thing. I support solopreneurs in learning to manage their business finances, and often people will ask me for, very specific tax advice, or something that crosses in the line to legal, or whatever it happens to be. And I'm always very clear what my scope of practice is. So what can I help you with? What do I have, the knowledge to provide you, and coach you around? And then what is really just something you need to seek advice elsewhere. So just making sure that I'm, in integrity with what I'm teaching, and not going to a place where it might be a little gray, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I like what you just said. I think it's helpful for some of us women that will watch this. Is you mentioned basically, if you didn't know how to help someone with something particularly that they needed, you would redirect them. And I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes as women, we just think that we're supposed to show up in every single way and put the burden and the overwhelm on
Mm-hmm.
ourselves to help do everything for everybody, but you're doing yourself a disservice. And then, like you said, accidentally you might get into a gray area with the integrity out of, an innocent desire to help
Yes.
everybody with everything. But if it's not your wheelhouse, it's better, for you to suggest that they go to somebody else for that, and declare your boundaries. This is what I'm good at, this is what I can offer you, and give that clear scope. And stop trying to be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
And I think, this is important what you just said. It was a little piece I grabbed, but I think it's important because many women want to they just feel responsible to do everything, and they don't
Yeah,
have to.
absolutely. Mhm.
Right. And I always think one of the best things I found, this a little bit off topic, but in the beginning of a business or even during it, it's so easy to become so overwhelmed with all the things you should be doing
Mhm.
and have to do, and do it this way and follow this one and the whole 9 yards. And you can get lost. It's almost like
Yes.
a tornado, and then you don't have anything happening. And I found that the best thing is to choose one focus and create boundaries and do that one thing well.
Mhm.
And it's hard because sometimes we're so multi-passionate and there's all the things. I think for me, when that multi-passionate side of myself shows up, it doesn't have to be create a new program or create a new,
Mhm.
it can be what am I doing now and how can I add more to it? Because then I'm
Yeah.
still in the main one focus. And this is satisfied for me, that urge to kind of add a little spice to whatever I'm doing. Do you have any suggestions or experience in yourself? How do you keep yourself from getting overwhelmed,
Yeah, I
basically?
think that's a great question. And all the things that you said are true. And again, it's the same, reminding myself that, this is what I'm doing. And if I have an idea for something else, I have a list, right, of all the ideas of things. And I've added, I have my main program, which is what I've been talking about here, but I have a few other courses I offer, and I've kind of added those over time as, people were asking for them. But I keep a list of ideas and things like that. And that way, I know that I can get it out of my brain and I can go back to it if and when I have the time. And, sometimes I do, right? I may be right. Okay, I'm ready for the next
Yes, yeah.
thing that I want to add to, to my offers. Let me go back to that list and see what makes sense now. So
Yeah.
keeping them out of my brain, but somewhere where I can reference has been really helpful in kind of keeping me on track with what I'm working on,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that idea. And it also brings me to another, process that happened for me. I have a number of skill sets, right? I spend time in digital marketing, building websites, social media, reputation marketing, and everything. And sometimes you feel like because you can do it, you should do it. Or especially also if you know that maybe that you had a great service, you had clients and got paid well and they were happy. And sometimes you're compelled to like try and fit that all in.
Mhm.
And I struggled with this because when you develop a skill set, you're sort of like, you don't necessarily want it to go stale or not
Mhm.
utilize it. But then in the end, you can't do everything. And if you try to, you can't do it well. And then it just becomes what I found is you have to follow really what brings you the most joy, not
Yes.
the most money, because it's tempting sometimes, especially in the beginning of someone struggling, they might want to go more towards the thing that they can count on. And that is very important, of course, to do money making activities. But you really want to, you have to like look at your business, I think, like in 20 years from now, will I still be so joyful and filled
Mhm.
up doing this? And when you can kind of get that yes, then that's where you really want to focus on. Even though you might be able to build a website and make 10 grand, with
Mhm.
a couple clients or something like that, if it's not fueling you, you will really kind of burn out. You won't enjoy the experience. And so
Yeah.
I don't know, did you have this happen sometimes where you
I,
had different skill sets?
yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that comes to mind is the transition back
Oh,
into, into the finance coaching from health coaching, because
yeah.
I felt I was trying to do it all because I still really did like doing that and I loved helping
Yeah.
my clients, but it got to the point where I was like, this is what I'm feeling called to do. And continuing to hold on to that and work with those clients is kind of clouding my
Yeah.
path. And it's hard to, like
Yeah.
we were saying before, get to the goal and do those things that are necessary to get me to this goal
Yeah.
if I'm still holding on to that. And so making that decision to really just part ways with that was tough. But in the end, I needed to follow my passion where it
Yeah.
was, now in
Yes.
this line of work. So
I love that. For some reason, I keep coming up with like metaphors, and I imagine like you're dating two nice gentlemen, but only
right,
one is, making you feel so in love that you want to spend the rest of your life with, even though the
right,
other guy is great too. But
right, yes.
you can't marry more than one person most of the time. So it's kind of like that, so you have to go all in. And I love that. I've actually never discussed this with any on the interviews before, and I'm glad we kind of talked about it because so many entrepreneurs are so multi-passionate and have so many gifts and can do so many things and joyfully so. But
Right.
I think, yeah, until you really master that one main focus, then you can start to bring in a little bit. Maybe there's some overlap, but you want to
Mhm.
set yourself up for success, right? And in the beginning, the less overwhelm you have and the more focused and clear you can be, you're giving yourself a a helpful push in the right direction. And this goes
Yes.
back to what we talked about, your whole work that you're doing with the money. When women get their money in order and are not overwhelmed, are not afraid of it, do not want to hide
Mhm.
bills, under the bookcase or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And when they pay attention and they make that money focus, education, preparation, and planning it properly, then it's more enjoyable, right? That whole situation. So, focus. Like, let's go back and just one more time before we kind of uh close our interview. Talk about the main benefits and beautiful experience that women can experience once they get their money in order, because this is what they need to focus on, not the actual
Right.
part of the doing and all the things, but what can they expect to feel by getting that money in order.
Yeah, clarity,
Yeah.
clarity for what's going on and what is possible, now that you know what's going on, confidence too, confidence in not even just to say, oh, now I have money or I don't, not that necessarily that kind of confidence, but the confidence to know and to know the steps that you need to take and to know what you can do and to know what's going to help better your situation if you look at things and they're not where they want to be. When you have that clarity and confidence, you can change what needs to change. That might be, in the sense of business, tweaking a program, adding a different program, maybe changing your pricing, whatever it happens to be to get you to where you need to be. But you have to have the clarity and the confidence to be able to make those changes. And so that's what I see. The transformation is the clarity, the confidence, and having, dialing down that stress. So no
Yeah.
longer dreading it, no longer feeling like, oh, I don't even know what to do. So you know what you have to do, just do it. And the overwhelm kind of melts away because you have a plan and you have it
Love
under
this.
control.
It, and it's like a great foundation, because again, it's like, when we think about money and putting it in order, and we think about, taxes and budgets and maybe some debt, and then we think about, well, investments and real estate and stocks or retirement or all the things. If we were to take all of that on at once, it would just be too much,
It's
where
too
you
much.
just want to run and
Mhm,
hide, and then
mhm.
nothing happens. But when you create a foundation such as yours, where you can get that foundation in order and get organized, feel confident, know your numbers, then again, you can add a little bit in. Okay,
Yes.
now maybe I want to invest a little in my retirement, and you get that done. Or maybe after that is all organized, one thing at a time. Then maybe you'll say, okay, maybe a little bit now, I need to pay down some debts. And you just start building this up. And eventually, this kind of confidence and empowerment you
Mhm,
get, it's it is such an important thing for women. You know me, I'm a money mindset coach,
mhm.
and that is the beginning start of everything wonderful. But then comes the practical. And this is, where you're just a shining light for women to help them get. Well, you also do the money mindset and get their mindset in order, but that foundation of that practical. And then they get to see their efforts in
Mhm.
action. And
Yeah.
it's just a skill that is not taught, that needs to be taught. And you know what, but even it's our responsibility to find the education, and you are a perfect person to help so many with this. So before we sign off, just give everybody your website one more time and spell it out so they can.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So it's sarafins.com, SARAF like Frank, INS.com. And if you go there, you can find all the information and links to my to the rest of my socials and all those things.
Well, Sara, I just want to say thank you so very much. This has been one of the most important foundational success stories that hopefully everyone listens to and takes wise advice. And also your business building story. I mean, it's such good insights and inspirations for those. So I just want to really thank you for sharing, and all of this wisdom. It just feels like we can do this, like if we were afraid, we can do this, like.
Yeah.
So All right. So wealthy women, this is what it's about. Wealth is not, it starts in your mind, but it also follows in your actions. And so, you need to get your money in order, not just your money mindset, but your actual money in order. And Sarah is definitely the one to go ahead and give you guidance and help with that. So please reach out to her. And until we meet again, I wish you every great thing and always keep going for your dreams and goals and know that you can get there. You may not know when or how, but you will follow the desire in your heart and you will surely make a happy life by continuing to do so. So until the next time, see you then. Bye for now. Okay, let's see.